Welcome everybody to the live stream Q&A session here of the Earned Life movie.
I hope you are enjoying the movie. If you didn't finish the movie, there will be still time to watch it for the next 24 hours. And here right now, we have great experts and leaders who are featured in the movie. And we do share the same mission that we want to make the world a better place. And here we are together for the Q&A.
Lots of people you can see right now on your screen. These are all cast members that have made this movie happen. And thank you very much, everyone, for making this amazing legacy about Marshall Goldsmith happen and about the inspiration behind the Earned Life principles. Right now, it's time for you to ask your questions. You can ask your questions in the chat window on YouTube or on the page that you have watched the movie on. And also, in just a moment, I'll post the Zoom link. So if you would like to be on camera and you have a device with a camera and a microphone, obviously, then you can join the Zoom call here right now, and you'll be able to ask your questions here with us. So let's have a look at the first question here. Let me just have a look. A lot of thanks and a lot of congratulations. And the first question we have is from Andy. Andy, why limit to 100 coaches? Why not 10,000 to get more leverage? That's the first question for Marshall.
Oh, a wonderful question. I began with the idea of 15 coaches. And my original idea was I'd put a little thing on LinkedIn and 100 people would apply, and then I would pick 15, and I'd be a nice old man and people followed me around and laugh at jokes, and then they get old and do the same thing. Well, it turned out I had 18,000 applicants. So then we moved from 15 to 25 to 50 to 100. Now we're up to 300. And I think that the 10,000 is a great idea. So what I want people to do, though, is start implementing this yourself. You don't have to wait for me. Start implementing this yourself. And, to the degree that you can do this, we have Tasha Urich, one of our group. She's adopted 10 people. Raj Shah, head of the Rockefeller Foundation, he's going to adopt 10 people. So we now have Fred Hassan, who is a former CEO, great guy in the pharmaceutical world. He's adopting people. So I love that idea. So there's no reason to limit to 100. On the other hand, I'm not going to change the name again. So the 100 is metaphorical. And I like that little infinity symbol. So the 100 symbol, because the symbol kind of means infinity. So 100 is now a metaphorical, not accurate name.
Thank you, Marshall, for joining us here today.
And there was a question, I think it was about, for Mike Werder, what was the most inspiring book? Because you mentioned it in the movie as well.
So we have Mike Werder here with us, also an SCC coach. And let's pull up the video and the mic. Mike, please unmute you. A question for you. What was the most inspiring book for you?
So the most inspiring book, of course, was What Got You Here, What Got You There, because it really changed my mindset. And from then on, I became a Marshallholic. So it's just started with the book, and there's also I have 5 of it in 5 different languages, and they have a special place in my library.
Thanks very much, Mike, for sharing. And we're getting a lot of questions here at the same time. And a question for Nicole, the biographer, as you saw in the movie. Thank you very much for Nicole for joining us. And it was a wonderful journey together with you. And actually, we have a question here for you, Nicole. How did you experience your journey as the biographer in the Earned Life movie?
Very transformational in many dimensions, because I met Marshall for the first time when I ring the door in the movie. And that's where, for real, so that's where it all started. So meeting Marshall and spending time with Marshall in itself is very transformational. But it didn't end there, because Marshall had me interview and all the people who influenced his life, so all his heroes. So it was one of the most transformative journeys that I have experienced, and very intense. And I experienced it as a slow cooking process. So a lot happened during that process, and a lot is still happening now. It is like it's a process that started and is still ongoing. So yeah, I think that's how I would frame my experience of being the biographer in the movie.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for your journey with Marshall and everyone else in the film. It's been a wonderful experience for everyone. Thank you very much for joining us, Nicole, and for blessing everyone with your presence. A question for...
I think there's one more question for Marshall. I know that we have other speakers, but I think this is this only Marshall can answer.
A question from Edmundo. What would be a great lesson you learned after 11 million miles traveling all over the world and all the people you met, Marshall?
Great lesson I've learned is from a coaching perspective, and we tried to reinforce this at the movie, it's all about the person being coached. If you're working with, like Deanna's on the call, thank you, Deanna. If you're working with great people, people who are dedicated, people that want to improve, they want to be role models, coaching is a wonderful experience. If you're not, you're wasting time. And it's better not to do it at all. So the thing I've learned is, you know, just work with great people, and coaching works. It just doesn't work by itself. And you really do need to coach great people, people that care, people are going to try. And if you work with people like that, this is a blessing. And if you don't work with people like that, it doesn't matter how good of a coach you are, it's not going to work. And hopefully the movie conveyed that message about coaching being something for great people to get even better.
Thank you, Marshall. And maybe let's have Diana to continue with Diana, because Diana is very inspiring leader, and we met her in person in New York. And personally, I was very inspired because she is one of the women on top positions that she is really at the same time she has power, and she's very authentic. She's herself. And we would like to learn more from Diana, how she experienced the teachings from Marshall.
Well, thank you. It was an honor to work with both of you, and we had a great time in New York with you and with Marshall. I've been very fortunate to work with Marshall since I was in my, I guess, late 20s, early 30s. Mm-hmm. So I've learned a lot from Marshall, more than I can say. I think the biggest thing I've learned from Marshall and continue to learn from Marshall is humility. Marshall talks about that a lot. And we're always going to meet people who have, we think, at least have done more than we have, or have more money or more power. And we can't think about that, right? We can't focus on what other people are doing. We only focus on what we're doing and how we can make a difference. That's one of the great secrets, I think, to confidence and to inspiration, is just to have your purpose in life and focus on your purpose, and everything else will fall in place, and don't think about others. Now, I've learned many, many things from Marshall. Thank you, Marshall. But I think that's probably the most important one that I have to be reminded of regularly by Marshall after 25 years.
And you know, Deanna's on a group with us on the weekends where we have 50 just amazing people, and we're in different groups. We spend 6 hours each weekend with these wonderful groups. And Deanna just wrote a book too called Higher Purpose. Show us the book, yay! And I think very inspirational to look at that from the perspective, it's not just about money and status and all that stuff. It's about what are you doing for the world and what's your deeper purpose. So very, very good.
And speaking about that, Marshall, if you listening and watching this would like to inspire more people, well, please share this inspiring movie. And also what would help is if you could review the movie. Since you're here today, if you liked it. I'll post a link in
Not
the chat
only
box.
Marsha, but everybody, if because Marsha
Yes.
only he has to do it. No, it's for everybody, all the listeners. If you could post a review if you like the movie, so that it helps to spread the message, because as many people see the reviews, more people would like to watch it, and we would really love to inspire millions of people.
I just posted the link in the chat window. It's ghostmeetmovie.com/review, and let us know what you thought about the movie so more people can get inspired. Next question for this time, Viviana, if our moderator David could help us to unmute Viviana, come and join us. Next question for you is the following. Viviana, how would you ever proactively offer coaching to someone, or would you always expect to be asked?
Good question.
Great seeing everybody, and great question. Absolutely. I have done this in the past already, asking if I can proactively provide coaching. When I see a person that is hungry for more coaching, is very for successful people, for people that want to be greater, to make an even greater difference. And when I see this hunger in people, definitely I ask them, hey, this is what you can get, and would you be willing to do that? And most of them say yes, because they want to always raise their bar. So definitely yes.
Thanks very much, Viviana, for sharing with us. By the way, if you'd like to find out more about all the great coaches and people featured in the Earned Life, on the homepage you can find their names and their profiles and their functions, what they do, so you can easily find out about them. Next, thank you very much, Viviana, for joining us. Next question is for Santosh. And the question for Santosh is the following. How important is team coaching at work compared to individual executive coaching? Santosh, if you're there, then
hi. Yeah, I was thinking David will unmute me, but I just was I didn't know I could unmute myself. Yeah, I think first of all, thanks to Patrick Cassia and Marshall, my guru. I met him a long time back in Dubai when he came for a talk, and Marshall always talk about individual coaching and how people become better. But I think when people become better, the teams become better. And but there is a dynamics for teams as well as individuals. But the dynamics within the team is a bit of complex. So I think team coaching is very essential for any organization to build the collaboration, understanding with each other, and be on somebody else's space and understand what other person looks like. So being in the geography of the other person and trying to be in the geography of the other person. So mutually understanding will help build, relationships. So team coaching, and I think in the absence of that, I think you will see all the toxic behaviors and environment that's around, which will create probably an unsafe environment for people to work. So I think individual coaching is very important, but at the same time, individual coaching will lead to a collective people who have transformed and can collectively work together. So that's my take on that.
Thank you very much, Santosh, for sharing that inspiration with us, and definitely very useful for all the attendees interested in coaching here today, which everyone should be. And also a next question from Rick this time. This is a question for Alan. Alan, here is a question from Rick for you. He says it's an incredibly inspiring journey he saw in the movie. Thank you very much for sharing this. So thank you very much, Rick. And question for Alan is he's curious how your coaching has changed during COVID.
Actually, I think I'm fortunate in that a lot of my coaching was remote coaching pre-COVID. So the remote aspect didn't change as much. I think more often than not, what I've seen in my work style is that we've actually increased the number of times that we connect. And that's not a problem. I think that's actually very good. So it's not that things have streamlined. I think more time connecting and getting that sort of connection between human beings through the remote aspect has become a part of it. And I think we're all going to have to get used to this as we look at all the data suggesting how many people are going to be working from everywhere as we move on. Typically, my life has been to meet once a month with somebody face to face and then do things on Zoom. That really has changed only about, 25% perhaps. So very fortunate. The client side has enjoyed it. I think everyone loves to work from the waist up so that what we're wearing down below doesn't matter. So I think it's a little bit more unrestricted. It's worked really, really well. And I think hats off to the talent that I work with to get that done more than me.
Thank you, Alan. And I was also thinking about the changes that now we can have an online premiere, and we have so many hundreds of people joining us that probably wouldn't be possible when we would have it live, because people for live events, difficult to fly over and be in the same place. And now, how many people do we have for this event, Patrick, today?
Well, almost 2,000 people have joined us live.
Exactly, 2,000 people. And we have also another 1,000 for tomorrow's event, or almost 1,000. So it's amazing. And thanks to the technology now and the possibility, we can all be here in one place. So I think this is a good outcome for the movie and for us, that we can be together.
I agree.
Thank you very much, Alan. And it's been great to be with you on the film set as well. Thank you. Next question here will be for Mark Thompson. And this is a good question for you, Mark, because you're a very, very close friend to Marshall. You know him in and out. And the question for you is, how can someone become a better coach, an excellent coach as Marshall?
Well, it's the earned life comes from having great mentors. And I don't know about you, but I only feel like I'm as good as the next 5 people that I've met, who I can surround myself with, that inspire me, that give me insights into the world. And one of the things that really led to Marshall and I working together is something I have to recommend to everyone. And that is, if you ever have the opportunity to partner on a coaching assignment with another master coach, it is an extraordinary experience. I think Marshall and I had the opportunity to work with each other in the late 90s, and maybe it was Walgreens or Intel or one of those companies, but there was a foot race into the corner office, and each of the presidents wanted their own coach so that the two horses would be armed. And Marshall called me, and I learned so much from hearing how not only his material is transformational, but also how he presents it in context. And since then, Marshall and I have partnered with other coaches and done 2 or 3 in a coaching assignment. And it's amazing to see how someone might filter a 360, or the way they might see a context from their prior experience or from a different culture. I love being with people of different ages, gender, cultural, and language orientations. So when we talk about diversity, we're really talking about diversity of thought. And so I think that, Marshall inspired me, and you see it in all of his work right now, the very inclusive nature of all the different perspectives that he's bringing to play. So if we want to even start to be anything like Marshall, it's well worth reading it and also then experiencing it in real time.
Thank you, Mark, for sharing, and thank you very much for joining us, and this also for your leadership. And the next question is for Frank Wagner from Jakub. And Frank, Jakub asks to you, what are possible future directions for stakeholder-centered coaching?
I'm going to sort of beg the question, because I claim zero ability to be a futurist in terms of this. Like I'll go back in the reverse direction. I met Marshall in 1972 at that PhD program. It is what is now called the Anderson School at UCLA, and the name Bob Tannenbaum was referenced a few times. And one of my learnings I never forgot from Bob was, when you talk about differences, which is obvious that there are, he said with all of his travels and all of his work that we are more similar than we are different. And I think that's what Marshall has done so well is every time I talk to anybody about anything about Marshall, a thing that comes to my mind is accessibility. Marshall's work hits them right in what they understand and what they do. And I think the stakeholder-centered coaching is just not going to change. It's just going to get bigger. You know, in terms of more people will be following the discipline, being vulnerable, asking for help, being appreciative, all the things that you learned in the movie. And, one thing I can safely say, and I'm going to just get on the soapbox here for a minute, is when you watch a documentary, you wonder how much of it is documentary and how much of it is docudrama. They captured Marshall perfectly. So that's my answer.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frank, for being with us and for so many decades working with the SEC coaching organization and spreading inspiration around that. It's wonderful to see you in action and wonderful to have you in the movie as well. Next question is for Glenn. Glenn Roberts McCabe, question for you from Charlotte. How did Marshall influence your approach to coaching?
Thanks. And I love the platform that I get to share Welsh names. So Glenn Roberts McCabe, and here in Toronto. And yeah, I mean, Marshall, I've met several times over the years. And so it's such a privilege to be part of this movie because as a young leader, I read What Got You Here Won't Get You There. I, like similarly to the gentleman in the movie, ticked off 16 out of the 21 or 22 behaviors that I was doing so beautifully badly. And also, I think for me, that really set me on the path of thinking about how when it comes to behavior change, it really doesn't matter how hard you work. It really is about changing the old tapes of the people around you as well. And so in the work that I've had the opportunity to do in our group, which is very focused on group coaching, was to really take Marshall's concept of the stakeholder-centered coaching and bring it and create a container for leaders to be able to get comfortable being vulnerable and then being able to share these behaviors, not only with each other, but with their managers and with their direct reports, and then have that ongoing container of support to continue that journey together when I'm not around as a coach. And so for me, truly Marshall is in the fabric, and what I have just, and what I aspire to, I think in my own practice, is to, I feel like if I could have 1/10 of Marshall's generosity, he probably wouldn't remember this, but I had heard him speak and I sent him a little note saying, hey, I really love that Mojo framework that you showed. If I put together a program, would you let me use it? And he said, Klein, just go use it. I'd love it if you used it. And I think that spirit is just something that is truly, I don't know, inspiring and something that I'm bringing into the work that I do. So thank you for that, Marshall.
Thank you. And, for everyone in the call who's interested, just, you can either send me an email or just go to my LinkedIn. There's a new article in Forbes about the Knowledge Philanthropy Project that just came out. It's a wonderful article. So if you just go to my LinkedIn feed, you can click on it and read it. But it talks about the idea of knowledge philanthropy. So it just is a great idea. And the idea is to give to people, but not with the expectation they're going to copy what you do. The idea is they're going to use what you do, but change it to fit their audience and their world. So I have a great example, a woman named Nankande. Nankande is from Zambia. And Nankande is developing a high potential leader program for leaders in Africa. Yet she's using all this stuff that I developed, but she's changing it. And it's her name, not my name. She's putting her name on it, not my name. And I think that's good. Sally Helgson, we did the book, How Women Rise. And again, she was the first author, not me. So what I like about that is really try to share things, but do it in a way where, you don't have to do some cookie cutter. You do it in a way that fits your audience, fits your people. I'm not an expert on high potential leaders in Africa. I'm not an expert on women leaders, but I'm always honored when somebody uses this material for their own country, their own culture, their own life, their own application. which may be, not what I even thought about, yet it makes me feel good. Because back to your example, if I help you and you help those other people, then indirectly I'm helping those other people, which makes me feel good. So
thank you very much, Marshall, for sharing. And speaking about helping others, if you would like to host an online screening yourself for your audience, for a group, for a company, or an offline screening, invite people when COVID is a bit over, or maybe it's not so omnipresent in your country, then you can bring people together even at your home. Well, you can host a screening just like today with the live Q&A, online or offline. I'll post the link to goldsmithmovie.com/host, and that will help you to inspire more people with this wonderful inspiration. Next question we have for, let's have a look, for Lois. Lois, great to have you here with us. And question for you, Lois, what's an elevator pitch to a CEO who has never experienced coaching on what is coaching?
What is coaching? So many people ask that question, what is it? And I love Marshall's introduction. It's for people who simply want to get better. Because I do think we have tended to look at coaching as for people who are limping. And when that happens in organizations, then coaching gets really a bad name. And for me, my big concern for CEOs, especially CEOs, as they work with boards of directors and then their down reports, is that perception gap. All of us has a gap between us and the next person because we process information differently. It's just part of being humans, the way our brains function. And so what Marshall's process does, and with the coaching, stakeholder-centered coaching, you're really able to shrink those gaps between people so they can get on the same page, they can work together, support each other, and move things ahead. So for me, my elevator pitch is for people who want to get better and really get on the same page with all the key stakeholders that they work with.
Thank you, Lois, for sharing with us. And next question we have for Nicole, and also if Han Bullens, who is the husband of Nicole, and both Nicole and Han are producers of the movie and very early supporters, for which we thank you very much from the beginning of the idea and the concept of the movie. So feel free, Han, also to chip in on the answer on the question for Nicole, which is, what motivated you, Nicole, to become a biographer in Marshall's movie?
What motivated me were, do you hear me? Yes.
Yes, we hear you very well.
Things motivated me. One, when I did the stakeholder-centered coaching training, I was intrigued by the generosity that I was feeling coming from Marshall. Even if Marshall did not do the training, I felt there was something, an element of generosity that I have not experienced in any other communities that totally intrigued me, and that really led to the fact I want to get to know Marshall as a person for who he is. So that was a big motivator. And then what I didn't know at the time was that a couple of months later, Patrick and Kazuya would call me and say, we're going to make a movie, would you like to be involved? And then we started to talk about the biographer. So one of the big reasons for me was that in the States, I think the market of coaching is ahead of Europe and also Asia, in terms of it is normal that successful people have a coach. It is much more normal to have a coach, and there is a much more open mindset and an open attitude towards coaching. And I really looked at my role as a biographer, as a European person, to contribute to this in with the aspiration to have this movie and Marshall's work and this mindset of making successful people more successful, that this also spreads more and more in other regions like Europe and the rest of the world. Because I believe leadership, it is top performance. It is, as Marshall calls it, a contact sport. And there is no high-performing athlete that would ever walk this journey without a coach. And in times that we are living today, where, I mean, workloads are high, the conditions are severe, everybody's under top pressure, it is almost irresponsible for a top leader not to have a coach. So my hope is really that this movie and the whole legacy of Marshall's work, that coaching is to make successful people even better, really becomes the dominant mindset in the world. And that was one of my biggest motivations to contribute and become the biographer.
Thank you very much, Nicole, and thank you very much, Han, also for joining everyone here as the producer of this movie, and Nicole, you additionally as the biographer. Next question we have.
Wait. I would like to add some. Oh, can you unmute?
Yeah, I'd love to hear your insights.
We can hear you.
It's easy. You unmute. First of all, a toast to everybody who participated. It was wonderful. And the only one thing, and the most important thing I learned out of the movie was patience. Patience. Seeing everybody produce this movie, patience. Thank you. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you very much, Han.
Thank you, Han.
And next question we have for Anne van de Katsei. We have two Annes. Let's start with Anne van de Katsei. And I see on the chat that there are quite a few people speaking about the daily questions, obviously, because it's quite very well visible in the movie. Everybody loves the daily questions process of Marshall. And a question from Richard as well is, how can someone get started with the daily questions? When someone's watching this live stream here today and they would like to get started with the daily questions as they saw in the movie, what's an easy way to get started, Anne? And we cannot hear you.
Yeah.
Yes, now you have
myself. I think the best way starting the daily questions is with asking people in your environment, which could be your family, which could be your partner, which could be your friends, to just ask them for some feedback about how they perceive you, to get to know and discover the perception that other people have about you, and then just listen, observe, and learn. And I think there will be automatically questions popping up during those conversations, things that make you wonder, things that surprise you. And I think by just talking and discovering really the things that have an impact or that stick around with you, that's going to be the start for discovering which will become eventually your daily questions. It's a process, and it's not something that you want to have within a day. Like Hans said, it's about patience as well. And learning is a process and discovering. And it might be that after 2 months you discover, might not be my daily question. You can always change them. So I think as long as you stay curious and you ask to others and you question yourself, I think you always have the right daily questions.
Very good. Pat, Mark Thompson and Deanna and I, we get to spend the weekends with 50 great people, and every week we summarize what their week was like, and they do the daily questions, but then we have a support group. And Mark, just one quick one. What's one of your reactions when people share their daily struggles with us at the end of the week?
Well, I think the thing that's always the most profound to me is how especially in this community of high achievers, everybody who's on that call is almost a peer of Deanna's. They're chief executives, they're rock stars, they're Broadway performers, they're Olympians. These are the best of the best. They're all at the highest of their profession. And I'm always so touched and relieved when I hear how they all struggle with their goals and how difficult it is when you set those objectives on your own behalf to honor them. And then to honor the other meaningful relationships in their lives equally. But I think, is that true, Deanna? I mean, week after week, we'll be on those calls with the highest achievers, and they'll all be saying, you know, I really suck at this. And, you know, I'm Mark Thompson. I call Marshall Goldsmith every day so I can get my goals done.
I'm Marshall. I have Mark call me every day. I need help. Deanna, what are some, just one reflection you have listening to all those people every weekend going about their lives?
Everybody has very different issues, but they're in the same category, right? It's setting goals, following up on goals, making time for yourself, being a good parent, being a good family member, being true to your ideals. It's very common across every single person.
It is. Yeah, it is.
Also a question that could be for many people. We have still several people haven't answered some questions yet, like Chris, Lynn, or Anne and Orly and David as well. By the way, our question for David, our host of, if you could please add David Davila as a panelist as well, then we'll be able to unmute him in just a moment. So question actually for all of you, and feel free to unmute yourself and start to speak from the people that I just mentioned, is a question from a person on the chat is, what is the most useful lesson you learned from Buddhism that you use in your coaching? So feel free to unmute yourself and ask and answer that question if you have any insights and use from Buddhist teachings in your coaching.
Yeah, I'll go. It's Chris. So,
hi, Chris. Great to have you.
Good. Great to see everybody, and wonderful job on the movie. No, I don't specifically talk about Buddhism, but I think the very first impression I had of Marshall many years ago when I met him, when I had just taken my first C-suite job, was the be happy and look at and be grateful for what you've got. And so many of the people I coach who are successful, accomplished people, there is something missing, and oftentimes it is allowing themselves to be happy with where they are, what they've got, and the opportunity that lies ahead. And this is like so many, I'm like Mike, I'm a Marshallholic, and from that time on, but I think this is one of the things that's just really endured without me necessarily professing to be a Buddhist, but I think it's a great life lesson that I've applied to myself and find with my clients.
This is Lynn. I'll go next. I agree, Chris. I would take a little bit different tweak to that, and that is I'm a director of an MBA program, and one of the things that we teach our students to do and require them to do is reflection. And I think that's a huge part of what Marshall teaches, is to be very reflective, to actually take the time to think about where you're at, where you want to go, and do some intense work in that area. And that's one of the things we share with our current business students. And I think it applies in coaching tremendously.
I agree, Lynn.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I was wondering, because we have also David Davila here who is working in China. And I think he has also experience with different religions and how the different perspectives and not the religions, but more philosophies, I would say, impact also your coaching, David.
Yeah, thank you for that. When I first was introduced to Marshall's work, I remember thinking, this is great stuff, but I'm not sure it'll work in China or in some other Asian countries, you know, for whatever reasons, you know. It feels kind of direct and this and that. And thankfully, I was proven wrong. And I've worked with many Chinese executives and other Asian executives. And it works because it's really speaking to some very basic human psychology that really transcends culture. That being said, you know, if I do speak to, for example, a stakeholder or a sponsor of a program who does have questions around that, it is great that I can mention, well, Marshall, the creator of this process, is actually a Buddhist, and we can have a conversation about, you know, where some of those themes tie in to the process, and that speaks very much to those types of individuals who maybe are looking at this as, oh, it's kind of something from the West that you're bringing here. It's something different and it won't work in this context. But actually the fundamental principles are something that, you know, have been talked about for thousands of years.
Thank you, David. And I also loved what you said in the movie about, I think it was from the philosophy of Dao about the leader. Can you repeat that, please?
Sure. There's a saying by Lao Tzu, which I'm paraphrasing here, but basically, when you have a good leader, people go, "Oh yeah, we've got a good leader for, you know, XYZ reasons." But when you've got a really great leader, the people will say, "We did it ourselves." You know, that it was just the leadership unfolded naturally, and we were able to take care of this thing. So, you know, I very much like one thing that Marshall said in San Diego was, you know, light touch, high impact. And that's a goal for myself as well as a coach, is how can I have a lighter touch, but have a greater impact? And I think it speaks to that same philosophy.
Thank you very much. We have two more people who didn't speak.
Yes, let's have the next question for Anne van de Perre. And by the way, if you're watching this and you have a question on your mind, feel free to post it right now. We have about 15 minutes left on this live stream with a lot of people from the cast, a lot of wonderful, friendly, wise people who have a lot of experience in coaching. So, and with life in general as well, with building an earned life. So feel free to ask your questions right now in the chat window. So question for Anne, what are your insights and what have you applied in your own life when it comes to SCC coaching? What have you learned from that?
Thanks for having me. Great question. I think the biggest takeaway for me is it's not about me, it's about the others. It's about the impact that I'm having on the life of others, as well as a coach, as a mother, as a friend, as a leader and executive, as I was in my previous life. And so being humble and showing vulnerability and taking every feedback as a gift and reframing it as an opportunity to get better and to help others also to be better, I think that is for me the biggest takeaway. It's not about me. And that has given me a lot of energy, but also confidence to just also show myself as I am, be authentic, and therefore also encourage others to be authentic themselves. Yeah. So thank you, Marshall, for that.
Thank you very much, Anne, and great to have you join here today. One question we have also for Ori Maravankin. Thanks very much for being here today. And the question for you is, how can a leader, or what's the best approach for a leader to show their best self?
Wonderful questions. And first, thank you so much for the privilege of being part of this whole process. When you meet Marshall, you don't just meet Marshall, you meet a community of people. You meet a wonderful community of coaches, a wonderful community of leaders. And the San Diego event was just an amazing event that allowed me to connect with wonderful people from around the world, many of which I'm still in touch with. So thank you, Marshall, for that. That was awesome. So going to the questions of how can we apply those principles in our own lives, for me, the best thing is to actually be very intentional about my life. So when I look at Marshall, I'm just amazed by his laser focus on things and his ability to kind of like zero in on what's most important and be joyful and just act upon that. So for me to bridge between my intentions to where I want to be, that's one of the main things that I kind of like learn along the process. Now, how do I do that? Again, using the same principles of engaging the system, you know, asking questions. How am I doing? How can I be better? And also formulate a list of daily questions that kind of like cover everything that is important in my life. It's work related, it's family related, it's community related, and am I doing my best? Have I done my best today? So those are the two tools I'm using in my life to actually close the gap between where I am to where I want to be. And thank you again. Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, Orly. And next question is for Marshall. People were very intrigued by the ending of the movie when the text comes on screen about you working with your dear friend Alan Mulally. And the question about that is, how do you expect that the next 12 months will look for you working together with Alan Mulally and the team? What are the key milestones that are planned?
Well, what I want to do goes back to the Knowledge Philanthropy Project. And it involves Deanna, Alan, a lot of great leaders, a lot of great coaches. And that is, I want a pilot project where everything I know, I try to package in a usable way and give out to the world to as many people as humanly possible, hopefully in different languages, different cultures, so people around the world. And then what I'd like to do is just once I get a system in place, I would see myself as a pilot project. Alan has some brilliant, brilliant stuff that he really needs to share with the world. And like Deanna's already started doing this, is really create a pilot program so they can plug in. They can plug in videos, they can plug in knowledge, and they can share what they know with the world as well. So that's the whole idea of Knowledge Philanthropy, just try to share everything with as many people as we can, different languages, different countries. And we got a great team of people working on it right now. Just a great, great team of people already working on it. And so that's kind of, I see the next step, which is kind of an infinitely big project. And I just like to say one other thing back to the idea of, you know, the Lao Tzu comment, which I really like, the idea that, you know, for the good leader, it might be about me, but for the great leader, they walk away and they believe it's all about them. I think one level of additional depth is it is all about them. It's not that they believe it's all about them. It really is all about them. Because at the end of the day, when we coach people, it's not our life. It's their life. It is all about them. And it's not just they believe it's all about them. Existentially, it is all about them. And that's, to me, a very, very important point to get across as a coach. It's your life, and it is all about you. And what you're going to get out of this has maybe a little bit to do with me, not too much. It's about 99% you. And, you know, and getting the client that sense of personal ownership, responsibility, because it is all about them. It's not my life, it's their life. And just communicating, it's not sort of about you, it is about you. This is your show, it's your life, it's your show, it's not my show. And I think that's a very deep and important message for coaches to communicate to the clients, as opposed to, I am going to fix you, or you're going to get better because you've met me. No, you're not going to get better because of me, you're going to get better existentially because of you. And I can help you, but ultimately it's your journey, it's not my journey.
Thank you very much, Marshall, for this very inspiring. And you also mentioned Deanna right now, and we were thinking that it would be great to explore more the higher purpose Deanna's working on right now in her book, because this might be very interesting. Deanna, if you could elaborate about what is your message behind the book, Higher Purpose.
Well, thank you, Marshall, and thanks to all of you for being interested. I am doing a little bit of my own take on what Marshall just said about sharing knowledge. And that is the message of my book, is that CEOs and companies really need to take leadership in retraining their employees for the future. Could be training, could be retraining. We started with retraining at Guardian, helping people learn new skills for different jobs. And we have now pushed it toward training and taking people out of high school without college degrees and teaching them, for example, coding skills, so they can come to Guardian, have a useful job that could potentially support them and a family. And then we also have free college tuition, so they can go to college while they're at Guardian and hopefully graduate without a lot of debt. And I've been pushing this message, and many, many other companies are doing this. I mean, we didn't come up with this. Companies like Starbucks and AT&T and Walmart are really kind of the cutting edge of educating people. And it's a new wave, because what we see in this country, too many people with too much college debt and the wrong skills to become employed. And so that's my mission at the moment, is to try to push that forward.
Wow, that's really amazing. And yeah, I think that this is something this is the knowledge in use. And I think that's Marshall, when you are working with your new project, you have probably a lot of inspiration how great leaders can help others. And we would like that also maybe Mark Thompson could share a few words about it, and how you are helping others, how great leaders can really support others.
Well, I think that if you read the article that was just in Forbes that Marshall mentioned about the Knowledge Philanthropy Project, it really sets a context to how the world has changed. One from kind of the zero-sum game, where either I have it or you have it, and don't quote it or pay me for the quote, and be careful of the copyright. All of this is zero-sum. And what Marshall's talking about, and what all of you do as extraordinary coaches, and what Deanna has practiced as a chief executive, as a role model, is this pay it forward model. Because then when you are generous and you give some of that impact and that knowledge and empowerment to people, it comes back a thousand, a million fold. You get the network effect. And that's where we've really seen, I think, in media and all around us, this the generous approach is the one that is frankly the most sustainable. And so, Deanna, thank you for role modeling that, because it's really at the top of organizations. Here you are, a CEO of one of the greatest Fortune 500 companies. You built that as a career, and now you're paying it forward as a teacher and as a coach and a mentor to the rest of us. So it's a really beautiful process. And thank you for the movie too, because this movie is about all of you paid it forward. That's about empowering everyone.
And this answers also the question of Ariane, how Mark and Marshall and Deanna and all the other cast members see the future of coaches and what will be needed. That's also a good answer to that question. We have a few minutes left. Let's go for two more questions. One from Marshall. If there was one thing that especially important hasn't been covered in the movie, Marshall, what would that be? What haven't you covered in the movie?
I think we didn't talk in the movie as much, not because there's only so much you can cover, about the important impact a positive group of people can have. So I really like our LPR 50, which wasn't in existence before the movie, but it's been so, as Mark said, inspirational to me to see these people who are phenomenally successful people, yet supporting each other. And the other learning I've had from that group is it's lonely at the top today. There's no saying it's lonely at the top. It is lonelier at the top than it's ever been. People have social media. Anything they say can be taken out of context. And just to be in a group of people where you can actually be a human, and you don't have to put on a show, and you don't have to be perfect, and everybody else in the room is a human being, that has been so meaningful. And so I think the thing is, you know, what wasn't in the movie, that wasn't in the movie so much. Yet I think it's now, since the movie, that's really dawned me how significant it can be to have this positive support group of people. And Deanna and Mark, two words that came out from the group was, you get accountability without judgment. We all need accountability. I need accountability. That's why we talk on the phone all the time. We all need accountability. Yet we don't need to be judged. The people in their call don't need to judge each other. They're their harshest critic. They don't need somebody to point out how stupid they are. They already know that, right? So just being in a support group where people can all be human, we can all be accountable, yet people aren't judging each other. They're just trying to help each other. I would say the positive impact of a support group is one thing I would answer that question with.
Now we need a second movie because it's one more topic that we didn't include.
Well, there are much more stuff that we have filmed. That's it. We filmed 300 hours of footage.
I know. I went through all the hours and I remember all the dialogues. Still, they are in my head.
And if you'd like to have a glimpse of it, actually, that's the answer to Chiara's question here. What can we do to bring Marshall's legacy and models to companies? We've compiled a lot of the remaining recordings together with Marshall into the SCL trainer program, the Stakeholder-Centered Leadership Trainer Program. If you'd like to speak for groups of executives or leaders, and this is the way to go, the link is on the chat. Now, time for one last question. Let's have a look here at the last question from Fernando. And that's a good question for Mark and also for Marshall. When does mentoring become coaching and vice versa? And is it good to do and receive both or one of them?
Go ahead, Mark.
I think for many years there was some controversy about whether a coach should also be mentoring, whether there should be a Socratic approach of asking questions only to allow people to find their own answers. And I think there's great merit and power in allowing people to unpack or unlock what's deepest inside them based on their own experiences and their own direction. I also feel, frankly, a moral obligation to be a mentor, that if I have something to offer and contribute, the caveat I always give when I'm sitting with a board or C-suite executives, and I just work in that part of organizations, is that I don't ever want to pretend to have your answer. And so what I'm giving you is pattern recognition. I've worked with 70 boards. I know what's worked for them, for the unicorns and the failures. You know, I've written about, I helped write Built to Last and Success Built to Last, and I've seen half of those companies get destroyed. So I do feel a moral obligation to say, this is what's worked for them. Obviously, you have the gift of being able to make your own choices. So I feel like coaching and mentoring is a beautiful combination. And also, you know, every week I talk to Magda Mook, who's the CEO of the International Coaching Federation, and she has evolved that organization to actually embrace both of those as characteristics. So it ends up being it's the genius of the and rather than the tyranny of the or, as we said in Built to Last.
Okay. And you know, to build on Mark's point, I believe in feed forward. So get in, what did Buddha say? You know, look, only do what I teach if it works for you. Ask for input, listen, thank people. We can all learn from everyone. And the mentor doesn't have to be somebody, quote, older than you or somebody at a higher, quote, level than you are. Your mentor could be a kid. So I think it's great to look at everyone as an advisor, as a mentor, and you know, feed forward is learning from everybody. So I really like that concept of we can all learn. We all need help. I need help. You need help. We all need help. And be very open to learn from everybody, regardless of their status or rank or education or all that other stuff. You know, one of the wisest people, Mark and Deanna, are called Gail Miller. You know, Gail Miller, you know, didn't go to a fancy high school even, and doesn't have much formal education, but she's one of the nicest and wisest people I've ever met. So I think we can all learn and just be open to learning from everyone around us.
Thank you very much, Marshall, for sharing. And I'd like you also to take the occasion and a big applause for everyone for co-creating this movie. Marshall, Nicole, Hannes, the producers, also the executive producer, Philip Kral, and also co-executive producer, Jay Wagner. Also, all the great stars like Diana, Alan, and everybody else, and as well all the cast members. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for making the earned life a reality that inspires millions out there. And feel free to go ahead and spread the mission of the movie for everyone. Any last words, Marshall?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, let's inspire millions of people with this message.
And as Marshall would say, life is good.
Life is good. Thank you.